Hello there, welcome to Nerd.World. In today's episode, we're looking at one of the Goa'uld System Lords who was probably one of the lesser explained in the show, Camulus. Camulus, in mythology, was one of the Celtic pantheon, a god of war specifically, particularly in Gallic or Gaul, specifically, mythology, from pre-Roman Europe. His exact homeworld is unknown, as is his age. Now, it is identified in the show that after the death of Ra, Lord Yuan Shang was the oldest living System Lord, but the Goa'uld left Earth approximately 5,500 years ago, which means as Camulus is still recorded in human mythology, assuming that he didn't just adopt the persona afterwards, as some Goa'ulds likely just took on the identity of an existing god that humans already worshipped, whereas others, they became part of the human pantheon by the humans becoming aware of the Goa'uld. Assuming Camulus did that, which is more likely, he's got to be at least 5,500 years old. Whether he was a full System Lord 5,500 years ago, we don't know. Modern 21st century humans of Earth, the Tauri, first encounter Camulus in the Earth year of 2004 AD. He's one of a group of System Lords that reach out to Earth to negotiate a sort of alliance to aid them in the defeating of their enemies. Now, as a typical Goa'uld, he displays both arrogance and impatience when dealing with what he views as lesser beings, humans. Being a Goa'uld, to the Goa'uld, humans are little more than slaves. They serve only two purposes within the Goa'uld Empire other than to worship them generally, which basically boost their ego. They are workers providing food or materials that the Goa'uld Empire can consume, or they themselves are for the Empire to consume, to be made hosts for new Goa'ulds, as the Goa'ulds themselves are a parasitical snake-like being that will infiltrate your body, wrap itself around your brainstem, grow tendrils into your brain and take over you. The symbiote itself is the Goa'uld. It's not to be confused with the human. As a result of this is Goa'ulds, although they sometimes have a personality that leans one way or the other to a gender, they are basically the epitome of gender fluid. Osiris being a very good example, went from a male to a female within the show. To the Goa'uld, it really makes no difference. They are not male or female, with the exception only perhaps of the queens, who require a female host in order to be able to properly reproduce if they're going to blend with a host. Other than that, the Goa'ulds don't really have a gender. They may identify as a gender, they may become accustomed to a gender, and they do take on traits of their hosts. As a result, Camulus had a predominantly male and masculine form of personality, as the blending process is slightly two-way, as they adopt certain traits of their host as well, to a certain degree. Those traits being things like sexuality and a sort of either masculinity or femininity, depending on what the host was like before they were blended. Camulus was supposedly a great tactician and warrior of the Goa'uld, but at the end we discover, as the Goa'uld negotiations break down, he requests asylum on Earth, admitting that his worlds have been sacked, his armies decimated, and he's nothing to go back to, and that he believes he can be of more use to the Tauri here rather than going back. Once the other System Lords realize what's happened to him, someone will end up killing him just out of revenge for some past slight that he made against them. His days were numbered, basically. He was unlikely to be able to recover, especially while the Goa'uld were in the middle of a major war. Later, we finally see of him. We learn that at one time in the past, Camulus had gained access to a piece of Alteran technology, specifically a zero-point module, which was like a miniature reactor about this big, but it could put out more power than every nuclear reactor on Earth combined. Immensely advanced technology, and he claimed that he had one that was 50% charged. Because he couldn't figure out how to use it, he rigged it so that if anyone else tried, it'd blow up until he could then figure out what to do with it. Now, he was an enemy of Baal, and Baal had captured members of the SGC and demanded the release of Camulus in exchange for their lives. Camulus was given a dud ZPM, because Earth wasn't about to give him the real one of his, which was apparently half charged, and released him to Baal's custody in exchange for their people. Now, we never see him, and nothing is, other than a quote from Daniel Jackson stating that Camulus is dead, that Baal killed him. It's not ever shown on screen, and we don't know his true fate, or how Daniel Jackson was completely aware that had happened, or if he was just guessing that Ball had killed him. It is likely another System Lord becoming basically the property of another System Lord. One of two things will happen. He's going to torture him and keep him around as a slave, or he's more likely just going to kill him after torturing him for a bit. If the System Lord was lucky, and the conquering System Lord was particularly benevolent, which Ball was not, they might feel magnanimous enough to allow them to remain as a vassal, a lesser Goa'uld who they can keep wiping their feet on and laughing at, if they're lucky. Sokar, for example, did this with Apophis, or at least was willing to do it, if Apophis would serve him. Now, as I said, Camulus always stood out to me because I really like the actor Steve Basic. He comes from Andromeda. He played both Telemachus and Gehenna's Raw Day. He's in a few other things of note, such as he was in Arrow and a few other shows recently, a few films I quite liked him in. Basically, I quite like Steve Basic. But also, as someone that quite likes history and likes Celtic and Iron Age history, the Celtic gods are something of an interest, and particularly someone that also likes military history. When I find out about a war god like Apollo or someone like that, they tend to stand out to me. So it was a Goa'uld I probably would have liked to have seen more of and thought could have been explored a little more, as Celtic mythology in Stargate wasn't widely explored. It was only touched on here and there with such human races such as the Hebridan, who were supposed to be Celtic warrior descended from people that lived in the Hebrides Islands off the north coast of Scotland in the United Kingdom. You also had, obviously, Camulus, who was a Celtic god, and a few other vague references, but generally speaking, it focused more on Greek, Roman, or Egyptian, particularly, obviously, heavily on Egyptian mythology with regards to the Goa'ulds. Now, that's it for this video. There isn't much more on him. He fought, he lost, he died. He wasn't the most successful or the most powerful Goa'uld System Lord, but he was one I would have liked to have seen more of, especially with the cross-franchise use of Steve Basic. It always gives any little fan a little nerd giggle when they see one of their favourite characters appear in another show, even if there's a different character, like when you see Stargate actors appearing in Stargate, which they routinely did, as the two shows were filmed in the same area, and had a lot of overlaps with crew and other such things, extras. But as I said, that's it for this video. Please like, share, subscribe, comment down below if you liked it. Let me know if there was another System Lord you'd like a bit more lore on. Obviously some of the others have a bit more juicy history, such as Nearty and obviously Ra and Apophis, Harrower. They've got much more detailed histories to them. But that's it. That's all. Thanks for watching if you made it all the way to the end of the video. Bye bye.